This week, we discuss how Steve Jobs led directly to the recent death of Adobe Flash. Now let's go ahead together as a people and check it out. And welcome to our first sensational Sunday of 2021. I'm Mike, and this is Mike Techs It Out. And yes, I am back to talk about the tech news. But before we even hop into it, if you enjoy videos such as this and people such as myself, there is a subscribe button down there. You may hit it and even select the bell icon to be notified whenever I'm doing a video, such as the live stream that I'm doing on Wednesday at 6 p.m. for my 2-year anniversary of this channel. Hooray! But what are we talking about today? Well, the biggest thing that happened was Flash is finally RIP'd, is gone. As of the 1st, it's gone. And a lot of people probably don't even know why Flash was a big deal, or maybe you weren't even old enough to remember when Flash was like the standard for everything like web-based as far as animations and videos. Even YouTube used to run based off of Flash. It was a big deal at the time. And it was around for a long time. It was around from 95 until 2020, because as of the end of 2020, it was gone. So I'm not going to go over the full history of Flash, but it used to be owned by Macromedia before Adobe acquired it, and even Macromedia acquired it from some other company. There's an article linked below that has a brief history of Flash if you want to go check that out. What I'm talking about is the moment that Flash was RIP'd, not officially, but pretty much the writing was on the wall for it. And you really have to credit Steve Jobs for that. And the main reason that I say that is because Flash support never came to iPhone or iPad or any iOS device, because it just basically wasn't good enough, in Steve Jobs' opinion, to be on the platform. So before I hop into the Steve Jobs part of it, let's go back to where I was during this period, and this was probably from around 2007 to 2010. I got involved closer to 2010, around the time when the iPad came out. That's when it first came to my attention that Flash wasn't a thing on the iPhone, and it impacted me because that was around the time when I got my first smartphone, which was the first iPhone. And I didn't get it new. I got it on Craigslist in a shady Chick-fil-A parking lot exchange for $100, because that's just stuff we did back then. When you bought stuff used, you had to do a shady exchange off of Craigslist. I'm sorry, if you didn't live during that era or you weren't old enough, that's just the stuff that we did. So I got it through a shady parking lot deal, and I went ahead, I had to jailbreak it and unlock it because I wasn't on AT&T at the time, because that's back when the iPhone was AT&T exclusive. So I had to unlock it so I could use it on T-Mobile. And I just remember when I got it, everything ran off of Flash at the time, so it just wasn't the greatest experience to go on the website, and they had like embedded videos. So even YouTube ran off of Flash at the time. There were a lot of Flash games, and it was just like the thing to have. Like if you wanted a true, real web browsing experience, you had to have Flash, because you know, everything animations or video wise pretty much worked off of it at the time. And I just remember it kind of sucked not having it. And that was when the rumors were heavy that Adobe was working on a version of Flash for iOS, and I was just like, oh, this is going to be so cool to get Flash on iOS. Well, about a year later, and to me owning the iPhone broke. Well, it didn't break completely, but like a strip of the screen stopped working at the top. So I ended up getting rid of it, and at the time I didn't have good enough credit to get a phone with AT&T, so I was kind of SOL. So my mom was on Verizon at the time, and I just remembered that the first Droid was coming out, because that was heavily advertised, Motorola Droid, the original one that was like Droid, with the commercials that had the slide out keyboard. That phone sucked, by the way. But I was really excited for it at the time, because I knew that Flash was coming to it, and that was a big deal to me at the time. And I was like, you know, it's got Flash, you can customize a lot more than iOS. I'm really on board. Like, I was really ready to be committed to Android. I was like, you know, this is kind of the next step for me, is to go over to Android where I have more options. So I got my Droid. I had to wait, I think it was about 6 months for Android 2.1, because that was the update that enabled Flash. But I think by the time Flash came, I already hated the phone, because it was just so buggy, and it just didn't run nearly as smooth as an iPhone. And this was the last Android phone that I had, full time at least. I have some cheap ones that I bought to do videos with, but by the time Flash came out, it was so bad. Like, it was so buggy. I was like, I don't even care about having Flash on here anymore. Like, I'll get over it eventually. Something's gonna change. and hopefully websites will get optimized for it, or when they finally do introduce Flash, it'll work better. But the experience was buggy, and I actually found in an article they had a video of like a demo of Flash running on the Motorola Droid. So I'll go ahead and put a clip of it here so you can see like how bad the experience was at the time. I mean, looking at the demo, like seeing it was cool. It's just that realistically, you never want to use it in real life. That was the last time that I cared about Flash. After I had the Droid for about a year or so, it might have been less than a year, I finally built up enough credits that I can go back to AT&T and get an actual iPhone, you know, a brand new iPhone, which is my first new iPhone, which was the iPhone 4. And since then, it's been history, and I've been team iPhone since then. Now, Android's gotten a lot better since then, but it really did leave a bad taste in my mouth from that experience of using Android, which is one of the reasons I've always stuck with iPhone. I have gone back and played with some more recent Android phones, and they're a lot better now. Like, a lot of those issues they had back then are gone. It's just that I prefer iOS. And one of the big things was like they didn't implement Flash, which I was mad about at the time, but then I quickly realized when I had it, I was like, okay, I understand why Apple didn't implement it. And it kind of made me trust them as far as implementing features when the time was right and not just throwing stuff at the phone just because you can. And that's the one thing that I've always liked about iOS. That's the biggest criticism of iOS too, is like Android people get the stuff way ahead of time, but it is what it is. It depends on what you prefer. I prefer to get a feature when I know that it's going to work right and it's not going to completely make my phone run horribly. That was my experience. Like, that was the turning point with Flash for me when I realized that it wasn't going to work on mobile. So the reason I bring that up, this happened around the same time that the original iPad came out. And in 2010, Steve Jobs apparently had a meeting with the Wall Street Journal. And at the time, Steve Jobs completely squashed any rumors of Adobe ever coming to an iOS device, mainly because of how bad it was on macOS. So I'm going to read a quick quote from the article here so you can get an idea of what Steve Jobs said. "We don't spend a lot of energy on old technology." He told the Wall Street Journal that Flash is a CPU hog and a source of security holes besides being buggy. He compared Flash to other types of technology which might have been standards in its day, but which Apple got users to stop relying on. So they're talking about things like floppy drives and, you know, obviously the headphone jack got RIP'd, and there's been a lot of stuff that Apple has just said, like, we're not going to do anymore, and the rest of the industry followed suit. And I remember at this time thinking that Apple was going to be the one that was on the wrong side of history. I was like, everything uses Flash. There's no way that, you know, mobile browsing is going to ever be as good as a desktop browsing experience. And I would still say like a desktop browsing experience is still the best, but mobile browsing has gotten so good now that I really don't even mind looking at websites on my phone. Like, if I just have my phone, I'm fine with just browsing and going to different sites. Like, I just do it every day. It's just natural to me because mobile browsing has gotten so good, and part of the reason is because Apple got away from Flash, and Apple was a smartphone leader at that point. Android hadn't really got its footing, and smartphones were so popular, the developers had to make these websites work on the iPhone because it was like the most popular phone at the time. So, you know, that means giving up Flash to go over to HTML5, which was faster and more secure, then that's what they had to do, and that's what happened. So a lot of the mobile sites that we have today are around because Apple was the one that took a stand and was like, you know, we're not going to do Flash on the iPhone because it's going to be a terrible user experience. And then soon after that, like a couple years later, everyone was like, yeah, Flash is not secure. We're just going to move away from it completely. But looking back on history, I remember that happening. Like, that's a moment that set on my mind when Steve Jobs basically said, you know, we're not going to do Flash on iOS ever. And I was like, man, this really sucks. And then down the line, like now it doesn't even matter. And Flash is gone. So in a lot of ways, he was right. Like, Flash is not secure, and it was buggy, and it was slow. So it's good that it's gone. There were a lot of people that like Flash games. I mean, you know, I played a little bit of Farmville back in the day, but I was never like a Flash game junkie. So there was a lot of good that Flash did. Like, in its day, it was the thing. Like, you had to have Flash, but I think them butting heads with Apple was really like the downfall of Flash. And it was funny because I was looking up these old articles and I just saw like comments and stuff talking about how wrong Apple was and stuff like it's going to cripple the iPhone. And now 10 years later, Flash is dead, the iPhone's still around, and mobile sites have evolved. In part thanks to Steve Jobs just getting out there and be like, hey, we're not going to support Flash. and kind of moving the industry away from it. So that's my take. Those are my personal experiences with Flash and what I think was ultimately the beginning of the demise of Flash. So let me know what you think. Is there anything Flash-based that you're gonna miss? Were there some old games that you used to play all the time? Do you miss Flash-based YouTube? I'm just kidding, nobody misses that. But let me know in the comments. And again, I will be back on Wednesday at 6 p.m. with my 2-year anniversary live stream. I don't know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be live. So no one's gonna be there to edit out the mistakes like I usually do in all my videos. So it's gonna be crazy. Make sure to tune in. But until then, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and always do at least 2 things at the same time.